Hi dear friends, welcome to the CSS Learners Academy, and today we are going to talk about another interesting topic, which is ideology of Pakistan, or most commonly which is known as the two nations theory. Now there are certain debates about the topic. Whenever you try to study the topic in detail, first is the impression that you have whatever you have studied in your school or college or universities, and then you know about the second opinions regarding the ideology of Pakistan. And here I am going to talk about three important school of thoughts with relation to the ideology of Pakistan. You might be related to any one school of thought, or you might be thinking about the myths and the realities of the two nation theory, and I will try to help you in this regard by giving a comprehensive analysis on the three school of thoughts with references. Well, first of all, there is a school of thought which believes that two nation theory is a myth, and it has been formulated years later than the creation of Pakistan. At that, the founder of Pakistan, Azam never used the terminology of two nation theory or the terminology of the ideology of Pakistan specifically. They believe that partition should not have happened in the first place, and it was a mistake. And they even say that Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah never intended partition to be like what we see today. And some of them also believe that Quaid-e-Azam used the creation of Pakistan initially as a leverage to get maximum from the British, who were already going to make the Indian subcontinent independent. Why British Crown was doing that? For the obvious reasons that the empire was getting weaker and weaker day by day. All the power that they had gained in the aftermath of World War I, now they were losing it after World War II. United States and USSR emerged as the new global power, and the weakening Britain has no option but to decolonize or allow the independence to the colonies. That is the reason that we see in the aftermath of 1945 a massive level decolonization of the African and the Asian colonies, and out of them Indian subcontinent was one. So they were going to leave the subcontinent very soon, but how they are going to do that is the debate that is involved here. The second school of thought believes that partition was indeed has to happen, and there was no other option. It is true that Muslims and Hindus, they have lived in India together for more than 1,000 years or even beyond that, but the bone of contention was always there. They are two separate nations living in that area, so they had to have separate homelands where they could perform their rituals, or they could perform their customs or follow their norms and values in accordance with their own beliefs. But they say that the ideology of Pakistan is not as it is presented today. Ideology of Pakistan was not something, a kind of an Islamic in its character. Basically, Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah, the founder of Pakistan, wanted that Pakistan should be a secular country where all the people should be regarded as Pakistani only, and all other things come afterwards. They believe that ideology of Pakistan was not even a terminology familiar to the Muslims before independence or even before 1960s. And then there is a third school of thought. They believe that ideology of Pakistan is Islam. Whenever you ask somebody in the most simple terms that what according to you is the ideology of Pakistan, they will say Islam. And they will say that Pakistan was created in the name of Islam. Pakistan ka matlab kya? La ilaha illallah. It was a very famous statement that for every man and woman in the subcontinent, they actually believed in that narrative. We will try to discuss all these three schools of thoughts, but we will not delve into that discussion very deep because I am just giving these lectures to help you in your CSS examination. So we will keep it to that. But I have created this page with the name of CSS Learners Academy solely for the purpose of discussion. So here you can believe in any one school of thought, and you can discuss this with me or other participants on the page. So now we will just take a look upon these three school of thoughts with references, and I will give you a chance to make your own analysis. Do not follow my analysis. As I say in every lecture, that I am what I am. You do not need to be me. You need to be yourself. So you will just look at these three schools of thoughts from your own perspective, and then you will create your own analysis. I think it will help you in solving the question if it comes on ideology of Pakistan or the two-nation theory. Starting our lecture, first of all, we need to understand what is the meaning of ideology or what is the meaning of two-nation theory. These are the terminologies which we use very often, but we need to find out what is the meaning of these ideologies actually. In the Dictionary of Social Sciences, ideology has been defined as: ideology may be defined as a cluster of beliefs, ideals and concepts that has become deeply ingrained in the social consciousness of a people over time. Ideology touches the hidden springs of emotions of the people as nothing else does, including an almost instinctive allegiance to causes inspired by the beliefs, ideals and concepts encapsulated by it. The ideology people are committed to, come to acquire an organic relationship with, and becomes integral in the real sense to the core ethos of that people. In the ultimate analysis, the cluster of overreaching values and ideals a nation subscribes to provides quite essentially the prime rationale of its growth and development. It is these values and ideals, especially those that have stood the test of time, that alone help endow a nation with a profound sense of high purpose. Here, ideology is defined as the set of beliefs that people believe in something, and then the ideas are so instilled in their mind then that they become determined to a specific cause, whatever the ideology wants them to be, or whatever is the expectation of that ideology that the believers of ideology should endure. Second Chief Justice of Pakistan, Justice Muhammad Munir, in his famous book From Jinnah to Zia, states ideology as: ideology means the science dealing with the beliefs, notions and theories growing out of fundamental assumptions held by the members of a group. Sometimes the members make a conscious effort to acquire the right kind of idea. More often, he accepts them unconsciously. The concept of ideology arose in Europe as a result of the conflict of various systems of thoughts. It has found use as a means of discounting the arguments of an opponent as reflecting merely the conceptions or prejudices of this group. Thus, Karl Marx argued that much religious and political thinking was ideological and served to protect capitalism. As we know that the concept of nationalism was emerging in Europe in several factions, like we see the rise of fascism in Italy and then in Germany, and we see the rise of capitalism and socialism and the debates between realism and liberalism. All of these debates were actually going on because the mankind was trying to find out some sort of an ideology where we can join people and unite people under a single flag, under a single narrative. So that concept was also applied there in the Indian subcontinent. Indian National Congress was even formed in 1885 by William Octavian Hume, and the sole purpose of the creation of this political party was to have to give Indians a kind of representation in the government, because relentless of the people of India, it was growing further because the rule that Britishers imposed was not a democracy. Indians had no say in the government. So a kind of political party was thus created for solving this problem. Therefore, coming towards our second issue, that what is the meaning of two-nation theory and how can we explain two-nation theory? Well, I would like to explain first of all in the words of Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah. Azam said that we have our past experience of the last 2.5 years. We have learned many lessons. We are now apprehensive and can trust nobody. It has always been taken for granted mistakenly that the Muslims are a minority. He said Muslims are a nation by any definition of a nation. Hindu and Muslims belong to two religions, philosophies, social customs and literature. They neither intermarry nor interline and indeed belong to different civilizations, which are based on conflicting ideas and conceptions. Their concepts of life are different. They have different epics, different heroes and different episodes. Very often the hero of one is the foe of the other, and likewise their victories and defeat overlap. He also added that to take together state, one as a numerical majority, other as a minority, must lead to growing discontent. Muslims are nation according to any definition of a nation, and they must have their homeland, their territory and their state. It was the address of Quaid Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah in 1940, where the famous Minar-e-Pakistan lies today in Lahore. So he very clearly stated that this is not a question of a minority or a majority. Instead, two different nations are living in a single territory. The 2 years that he is talking about are the 2 years of the rule of Congress. In the aftermath of general election in 1935, Congress maintained their government from 1937 to 1939. And in these 2 years, it made realize Muslims very clearly that Muslim League is the only party which talks about the interest of the Muslims, and no other political party can safeguard these rights. Therefore, in 1940, we have these words from Quaid Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah. But Quaid Azam actually echoed the words of Allama Iqbal in the famous address. Allama Iqbal stated, "I would like to see the Punjab, NWFP, Sindh and Balochistan amalgamate into a single state. Self-government within or without the British Empire and the formation of consolidated Northwest Indian Muslim state appear to me to be the final destiny of Muslims, at least of Northwest of India. God his attention." Then again, the first Prime Minister of Pakistan, Liaquat Ali Khan, says, "Muslims and Hindus are two separate nations by definition. Muslims have their own customs, religion and tradition, and from social and moral point of view, Muslims are different from Hindus, and therefore Muslims should be able to have their own separate homeland in which Islam is the dominant religion." Now, after giving you a certain concept about the ideology of Pakistan or the two-nation theory, now I would like to enter into the debate that I was previously mentioning, that what are the three schools of thoughts and what are their beliefs. So as I was mentioning earlier, the first school of thought believes that partition should not have happened, and partition was not what Muhammad Ali Jinnah intended, and he used Pakistan as creation of Pakistan as a leverage to get the maximum from the leaving British crown. In his famous book, The Man Who Divided India, Rafiq Zikriya has maintained a chapter number 20, where he says, "What did the Muslims of subcontinent gain by the creation of Pakistan? It has been universally regarded as the most precious gift Jinnah gave them. He alone was undoubtedly its sole founder. Single-handedly, he fought for it, and the entire credit for its formation must go to him, but so should the blame for the dreadful consequences that follow." An in-depth analysis of Jinnah's upbringing, training and outlook, nay, his personality as a whole, as has been brought out in this retrospect, establishes beyond doubt that he was never motivated in any of his actions all through his public life by love of Islam. So here we see very clearly that they believe that two-nation theory or ideology of Pakistan is a myth, and partition in the name of Islam was nothing in the mind of Jinnah, because Jinnah himself do not believe in it, and he and other such authors try to prove the same point. Now they also say, as we have seen here, that Jinnah should be blamed for what he did with respect to this partition. And they also say that all the things that follow the issue of Kashmir and disputes between India and Pakistan and the wars that we have fought, separation of Bangladesh from Pakistan, all of these are realities which point out to the fact that partition should not have happened. If there was no partition, if Indian subcontinent was united even today, we shouldn't have fought these wars and all that. So now just the second school of thought. Now the second school of thought, as I mentioned earlier, they believed that ideology of Pakistan was indeed there, but it was not in the name of Islam. Pakistan was not created in the name of Islam. Pakistan was created as a separate homeland where Muslims and all other nations or other people could become a part of this country. Speech of Quaid Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah in the Constituent Assembly on 11th of August 1947. All the same, in this division, it was impossible to avoid the question of minorities being in one dominion or the other. Now that was unavoidable. There was no other solution. Now what shall we do? Now if you want to make this great state of Pakistan happy and prosperous, we should wholly and solely concentrate on the well-being of the people and especially of the masses and the poor. If you will work in cooperation, forgetting the past, burying and hardship, you are bound to succeed. If you change your past and work together in a spirit that every one of you, no matter to what community he belongs, no matter what relations he had with you in the past, no matter what is his color, caste or creed, is first, second and last a citizen of this state with equal rights, privileges and obligations, there will be no end to the progress you will make. I cannot emphasize it too much. We should begin to work in that spirit, and in course of time, all these angularities of the majority community, the Hindu community and the Muslim community, because even as regards Muslim, you have Pathans, Punjabis, Shias, Sunnis and so on. Among the Hindus, you have Brahmins, Vish, Khatris and Bengalis, Madrasis and so on will vanish. Indeed, if you ask me, this has been the biggest hindrance in the way of India to attain its freedom and independence. And but for this, we would have been free people long ago. No power can hold another nation, and especially a nation of 400 million souls in subjection. Nobody could have conquered you, and even if it had happened, nobody could have its hold on you for any length of time but for this. Therefore, we must learn a lesson from this. You are free. You are free to go to your temples. You are free to go to your mosques or any other places of worship in this state of Pakistan. You may belong to any religion or caste or creed that has nothing to do with the business of the state. We are starting in the days when there is no discrimination, no distinction between one community and another, no discrimination between one caste or creed or another. We are starting with this fundamental principle that we are all citizens and equal citizens of one state. Now I think you should keep that in front of us as our ideal, and you will find that in course of time, Hindus would cease to be Hindus and Muslims would cease to be Muslims. Not in the religious sense, because that is the personal faith of each individual, but in the political sense as citizens of state. So here you can find out that Quaid Azam was clearly saying about a secular country. He was mentioning nationalism and patriotism, the bigger realities as compared to Islam. And he didn't state it that this country is created in the name of Islam, or it is for Muslims, or we should have better rights than other minorities also. Even he has mentioned different nationalities, the different group of people who are related to different religions, and he stated that all of them can live together as Pakistani and all other things will cease to exist. Therefore, this school of thought believes that Quaid Azam intended to create a secular state and not an Islamic state as we see it today. In this book, Jinnah to Zia, another important event has been mentioned. It was an interview The pattern of government which the Quaid Azam had in mind was a secular democratic government. This is apparent from his interview which he gave to Dr. Doon Campbell, Reuters correspondent in New Delhi in 1946, in the course of which he had said, "The new state would be a modern democratic state with sovereignty resting in the people and the members of the new nation having equal rights of citizenship regardless of their religion, caste or creed." So it was in 1946, 1 year before the creation of Pakistan. Some people also say that before the creation of Pakistan, Quaid Azam was always talking about an Islamic state, and when Pakistan was created, he suddenly changed the course of his thinking. That is not true. Quaid Azam believed in an Islamic state, but the liberal Islamic state, not the conservative or the orthodox Islamic state. Likewise, a very interesting event has been mentioned in the book Jinnah to Zia. Ideology, which is now a common word in English, is not used with reference to the country. I heard this word for the first time in 1953 when I was holding an inquiry into the Punjab disturbances of that year, and I formally incorporated it in the report regarding the 3 demands against the Ahmadis, which were founded on the objective resolution. Thereafter, when I was a member of a youth cabinet in 1962 and the political party's bill was under discussion, a person moved an amendment to the bill proposing that no party would be formed, the object of which was opposed to the ideology of Pakistan. On this, Chaudhry Fazl Ilahi, who has recently retired as President of Pakistan, rose from his seat and objected that then ideology of Pakistan shall have to be defined. On this, the member who had moved the original amendment replied that the ideology of Pakistan was Islam. But nobody asked him the further question, what is Islam? The amendment to the bill was therefore passed, as the member who supported the amendment was Maulvi Abdul Bari of Layalpur, who was a supporter of a youth. Nobody can say anything to the contrary where Islam is mentioned. So here, Justice Muhammad Munir, the second Chief Justice of Pakistan, tells us that he even heard the word ideology of Pakistan first time in the cabinet in 1962. So according to this approach, the ideology of Pakistan was not mentioned even before the creation of Pakistan or even after the creation of Pakistan. But there it was certainly created by a member who belonged to Jamaat-e-Islami, and Jamaat-e-Islami, which was an organization which was against the creation of Pakistan. Now, Javed Iqbal, in his book Ideology of Pakistan, has maintained these 5 points very specifically. Number 1, Quaid Azam, he is talking about Quaid Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah, where he says that he was opposed to a theocratic government, that he wanted a secular democratic government. 3, that there was to be one nation, the Pakistani nation, regardless of individual's creed, religion and sect, that religion would be an affair of the individual and will have nothing to do with the administration of the state, that such government was to be based on Islamic principles and traditions. Number 5, that by Islamic principles he understood a society based on social justice, equality and brotherhood of man, tolerance, equity, justice and fair play. About this second school of thought, I would like to mention here a famous book of Hussain Haqqani, Pakistan Between Mosque and Military, where he maintains Pakistan's state institutions, especially its national security institutions such as the military and the intelligence services, have played a leading role in building Pakistani national identity on the basis of religion since Pakistan's emergence as an independent country in August 1947. Here you see, he is blaming military and intelligence services for the creation of national identity. Let's move further. This political commitment to an ideological state gradually evolved into a strategic commitment to jihad ideology of holy war, especially during and after the Bangladesh War of 1971, when the Pakistani military used Islamist idiom and the help of Islamist groups to keep secular leaders who were supported by and elected by the majority Bengali-speaking population out of power. Rebellion by the Bengalis and their brutal suppression by Pakistan's military followed. In the 1971 war, Pakistan was split apart with the birth of an independent Bangladesh. Now, I do not agree with his points, obviously. I have mentioned this paragraph only to maintain his point of view regarding the ideology of Pakistan, which was created by the military or ISI or other intelligence agencies according to his point of view. Regarding the 1971 war, obviously we will have another comprehensive lecture, and there I will discuss several point of views regarding that war. This school of thought that they are talking something about a secular state, and they are proving it from the statements of Quaid Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah. They are stating that Quaid Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah always intended to have a secular democratic government in Pakistan, and not the kind of government which would be called as the Islamic government, or where the law of the land would be Sharia. Quaid Azam believed that the land of the law would be democracy. So that was all about the second school of thought, and now we will discuss something about the third school of thought, and then I will conclude my. So the third school of thought actually believes that partition was intended to be done. It was the last resort for the Muslims because of the conditions that the Muslims of Indian subcontinent were facing, and that the ideology of Pakistan was created, two-nation theory was established, it is a reality, and the two-nation theory was based on solely the concept of Islam, because the two-nation theory divides Muslims and Hindus into two nations, and the basis of this division is Islam. What is that Islam which Quaid Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah or Dr. Allama Muhammad Iqbal intended? That is another debate, but let's try to find out through their statements and some further references explaining this third point of view, or the third school of thought. Now, in favor of this school of thought, I will put forward some statements as this one. At a public meeting in Dhaka held on 21st March 1948, he had said, he means Quaid Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah, Islam has taught us this, and I think you will agree with me. For whatever else you may be and whatever else you are a Muslim. You belong to a nation now. You have carved out a territory, a vast territory. It is all yours. It does not belong to a Punjabi or Sindhi or Pathan or a Bengali. It is yours. Make no mistake. Pakistan is not a theocracy or anything like it. Islam demands from us the tolerance of other creeds, and we welcome in closest association with us all those who, of whatever creed, are themselves willing and ready to play their part as true and loyal citizens of Pakistan. So here we see Quaid Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah talking about an Islamic state, but a real Islamic state. When we look towards the state of Medina that was developed by Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it was a state where Muslims created the state and they were in the government, but they invited all the other people to share the power with them, and they can equally live with the Muslims in that community. Now that was the concept of Quaid Azam. But the question here is that what was the reason, what compelled Quaid Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah to think about a separate state, or to think about partition of India, when first he was the member of Indian National Congress, and he was the main architect of the Lucknow Pact of 1916, and he also was regarded as the ambassador of peace. What happened? What went wrong? Why Quaid Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah suddenly started to think that the two nations cannot survive if they live together? So there should be a separate homeland for both. Sir Sayyid Ahmad Khan once stated, they are under the influence of false and meaningless prejudices and do not understand their own welfare. In addition, they are more jealous of each other and more vindictive than the Hindus, and suffer more from a sense of false pride. They are also poorer, and for these reasons I fear that they may not be able to do much for themselves. Sir Syed Ahmad Khan in his time obviously is talking about the states of the Muslims of India. What are their concepts, how they think, how they are involved in the traditional thinking, and how they need to be awakened. Unfortunately, as the two schools of thought that we were discussing today, we see a glimpse of what Sir Syed has talked about the Muslims of that period. Even such people exist today, and they believe in the things that I have discussed earlier in the two school of thoughts. Was a Muslim leader, Aga Khan, who was also aware of the importance of British rule to the safety of his people. In his book, India in Transition, he wrote of the state of Muslims during the last decade of the 19th century. The average Indian Muslim looked upon himself as a member of a universal religious brotherhood, sojourning in the land in which a neutral government with a neutral outlook kept law and order and justice. While his allegiance was to Queen Victoria, his political self-respect was satisfied by the existence of the sultans at Constantinople and Fez, and the Shah and the Khedive at Tehran and Cairo. The fact that the British government was the mainstay and support in the diplomatic arena of the independent Mohammedan states was naturally a source of continued gratification to him. In another, we see that the Britishers, what was the thinking of Britishers about the Indian people? Prince Albert wrote, with informed detachment to the Prince of Prussia, the Indians are not a people capable of conquering independence for themselves, to say nothing of maintaining it. Since the days of Bacchus and Nimrud, India has constantly been overrun and conquered by new races, the Assyrians, the Persians, the Greeks under Alexander, the Himgan, Tartars, Arabians, and others, down to the most recent times. The conquerors have brought under the yoke and oppressed the races whom they found in possession, but have neither rooted them out nor absorbed them. Thus they remain intermingled, but without national coherence. So this was the general perception, and this was the general thinking of Quaid Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah and Sir Syed Ahmad Khan. I mean the leaders of the Muslims who were thinking about the plight of the Muslims, that how they are going to go further, because they are not aware of their own needs of the time, and they do not understand what has been inflicted on them. So it is very difficult if you have to if you have to teach the people that what you need and what is required for you, and people, they don't listen to them, and they even criticize you that whatever you are doing, we don't understand that, but we are sure that we are against it. So that was the kind of ideology prevailing there even before the creation of Pakistan, and unfortunately we see it afterwards. Now let's talk about the thinking of Allama Iqbal, what he think about this whole saga which was going on in the Indian subcontinent. He says, Islam appeared as protest against idolatry, and what is patriotism but a subtle form of idolatry, a deification of material object. Islam could not tolerate idolatry in any form. It is our eternal mission to protest against idolatry in all its forms. What was to be demolished by Islam could not be made the very principle of its structure as a political community. The fact that the Prophet, may peace be upon him, prospered and died in place, not his birthplace, is perhaps a mystic hint to the same effect. So here Allama Iqbal is stating that the Muslims and the Muslims of subcontinent, they should not relate Islam with any other reality. He says about patriotism, he says about nationalism, that all of these realities of our time, they are the form of idolatry, and we should not go towards them, but we should only look for the upbringing and looking about Islam as a divine religion which contains all these things, and we should not relate or merge the both. Here is what he talks about. The law of Islam does not recognize the apparently national differences of race or the historical differences of nationality. The political ideal of Islam consists in the creation of a people born of a free fusion and all races and nationalities. Nationality with Islam is not the highest limit of political development. So, here you see that he says that nationalism is even not as important as Islam is, and that Islam is another reality, even a greater reality than nationalism. And further he says, our solidarity as community rests on the religious principle. The moment this hold is loosened, we are nowhere. Probably the fate of Jews will befall on us. But our educationists are still groping in the dark. They are perhaps too much dazzled to realize the difference between Islamism, which constructs nationality out of a purely abstract idea, i.e. religion, and Westernism, the very lifeblood of whose concept of nationality is concrete thing, i.e. country. And at last, with the references, I would like to quote another statement of Quaid Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah. We follow the teachings of Muhammad, may peace be upon him, in which all are equal in rights, dignity and self-respect. Consequently, we have a special and very deep sense of unity. Not only most of us are Muslims, but we have our own history, customs and traditions, and those ways of thought, outlook and instinct which go to make up a sense of nationality. We wish to live in peace and friendship and to work out our destiny in our own way and make our rightful contribution to the affairs of the world. So here are the three different school of thoughts as I have mentioned them, and as conclusion I would like to say that Islam is the base of the two-nation theory. Islam is the base that separated the two nations, and it was the result of this approach that we had this country, Pakistan, and how it developed and how it emerged. Obviously, as we see that Quaid Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah, he was a staunch proponent of an advocate of peace and unity, and he wanted to see India as a united country. But when he felt the resentment of Congress to accept Muslims as a reality, that went wrong. Quaid Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah tried to fix the point, and as we see throughout his struggle that in 1906 when Muslim League was established, it was solely established to give a separate electorate to the Muslims, and that right was almost regarded by the British, and we see in 1909 that the right of separate electorate was given to the Muslims. But then later on we see that the British were not fulfilling the promises, and then we see the riots and the chaos going on, and that is the reason in 1913 many prominent leaders have joined the Muslim League, All India Muslim League, and one of them being Quaid Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah. But at the same time, Quaid Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah remained a member of Indian National Congress, and he was also elected as the executive member of the Executive Legislative Assembly of the Viceroy of India. So he remained with the Congress until, and in 1916 we see a Lucknow Pact. That was a very big achievement, and that's why he was called as the ambassador of Hindu-Muslim unity, because we cannot survive unless we believe in unity. But the incidents happened afterwards, as we see in the 1919, and then the Rowlatt Act, when the people were arrested, political figures were arrested, including Gandhi. It is the first time when he was emerged on the political arena of Indian subcontinent, and in the case of Khilafat movement. And then later on they were again deceived by the British, and then we realized that we are on our own. We are on our own, and whatever we have to do should be in the name of something that unites all the Muslims throughout the subcontinent, and obviously that reality was Islam. All around the subcontinent there were different communities, different people having different culture, different norms and values. Even if we contrast East Pakistan with West Pakistan, East Pakistan which is now Bangladesh, if we contrast between the two, there is nothing common but Islam. I can say that Islam was the sole value which united all the Muslims all around the subcontinent, and it formulated the base to stand up for themselves. People were not even aware of what Quaid Azam was doing and what was his belief, and whether this Muslim League could grant them freedom or something like that until 1937. That is the reason I say that Congress has worked hard for the creation of Pakistan even more than Muslim League, because it was the 2 years rule of Congress that made all the Muslims realize that Congress is only the party of Hindu and they are supporting the Hindu extremists against Muslim, and regardless of their promises of safeguarding and protecting the minorities, whatever happened with the Muslims was far beyond expectation. And that's why we see that in 1940 the resolution, Lahore resolution, which is famously called as, or the Pakistan resolution, was passed with an overwhelming majority, and the political figures from all over the Indian subcontinent participated, and then the result of 1945-46 is obvious. We will discuss these topics in detail, obviously, because they are a part of your syllabus, but today we have talked about the ideology of Pakistan and the two-nation theory. The questions that are asked on these topics are normally related to the ideology of Pakistan with reference to the statements of Quiad, Azam and Allama, which I have explained here and referred here, and sometimes the debate may go on regarding the two-nation theory and the different concepts of two-nation theory that are evolving. So this was our topic for today. The people who have not subscribed to the channel, I would like you to say that you must subscribe to the channel for more topics. And obviously you can contact me anytime on this mobile number or on my email ID, and I will be happy to answer all of your questions. You can ask questions in the comments below this video, or personally by contacting me through Facebook or through mobile number. Stay blessed. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.